the weekend's Premier League football was particularly interesting and exciting. The big shock, if you like, was Manchester City losing 1-0 to Arsenal at the Emirates. That has opened up the Premier League in a way. It's their second defeat in succession. Wolves beat them the previous week, and they didn't have a good result against Newcastle in the League Cup. And there are signs that this year the Premier League may not become the procession it's been, with one or two clubs at the top that it's been. Tottenham are on top, Arsenal second, Manchester City third, Liverpool bang there in fourth, and Aston Villa also having a good run are fifth. And to discuss the weekend's games, some of which were fascinating, we're joined by John Giles. John, the procession we're used to, last year it was Arsenal, Man City, before that it was Liverpool, Man City. I don't think Man City are anywhere near where they should be, John. And that was evident, wasn't it, in the last couple of games? Both again, they lost 2-1 away to Wolves and they lost 1-0 to Arsenal. It's the first game since Haaland has been at the club that he hasn't had a shot. Quite extraordinary.
Oh, amazing, Eamon. And well, that's the way they played. You know, they had possession of the ball in their own half the field, sometimes in Arsenal hand, but never threatened the goal.
No.
And it was never... I mean, looking at Haaland, I felt sorry for him because centre forwards usually receive some long balls on their chest and bring people into the game. There's none of that. Well, even in main matches, very many matches, they very seldom hit Haaland.
Yes, it takes so long to get up there with the short passes,
Yeah, the short pass it. And the thing is that obviously they don't give the ball away very much. I mean, generally when they're playing like that. But I think it's overdone. I'm not saying that just because they lost. I think it's overdone in the way that they do it. But they do keep possession of the lot, and they have won a lot of matches doing what he's done. But it wasn't a good game. I don't think City played well enough. I think Arsenal didn't play particularly well either. No. I mean, they got the goal and they keep giving Martinelli the goal where it hit Aka, didn't it?
Ake, on the head,
A big OG, you know. So, but from Arsenal's point of view, I mean, obviously, it's a big win. I think it's the first time they beat them.
Since 2015.
Yeah, that's a long time.
It is 8 years. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good start. It was a very good day for Arsenal and a poor day for City. There's no doubt on that.
Yeah, now, there is something to say about City. They are missing, and we're missing a number of big players at the weekend. Kevin De Bruyne is the most obvious one, John. He's out for a long period with a bad hamstring injury, it appears to be, that might require or has required an operation, I think. Rodri was serving the last of his 3-match ban, the last game of his 3-match ban. So he was missing. But in general, he left John Stones on the bench, for example, and we talk about this 115 charges they face from the Premier League because there is a doubt about the integrity of the club, really, in signing players and in other areas where they're spending more than they should be. The charges have been made. They haven't been made to answer for them yet. But I think it's curtailed their ability, John, to go out and sign big players. One player they did sign is Alvarez, who's done well for them. He's an Argentinian, but they got him quite cheap, 60, 70 million. But they have a young fella there playing at the weekend called Lewis in midfield, not really good enough. He has Bernardo Silva playing. Bernardo Silva was interviewed after the match. He said, well, the manager asked me to play where Rodri plays, in the number 6 role, which is a defensive midfield player. He said I should drop in between the two centre halves. And we were talking during the game and watching Silva. He's a devastating forward. And to have him playing there is really, really weird. Phil Foden played. Grealish has disappeared. He was on the bench again yesterday. Now, Grealish is a player that neither you or I don't think are in love with, but he had a major say in the last half of last season when they won the treble. But I think he went out on the town after they won the Champions League, and I don't think he's come back yet.
No,
he's sitting on the bench.
I think he's still celebrating that aim and all right.
Yeah, but there's something about their team that's lacking, isn't there, John? the players you wouldn't expect. They're not just good enough to play at the level of a treble-winning team. Kovacic is a good example. He should have been sent off yesterday. They bought him for cheap, you know.
Well, I didn't think that was a good buy. But as you say, and I think you mentioned the money early on. Yeah. I think they've got to be very, very careful now in the situation that they're in if they go spending big money again. I think that's why they didn't get Rice, for example.
Yes.
So he's got to be very careful.
Yeah, Guardiola mentioned Rice after the game. He said he would have been perfect for us, but we couldn't get him. Now, there's a big controversy going on about Rice. Some people, Graham Souness, Roy Keane, I think you also have doubts about how good he is. I think for what he is, he's very, very good. But
I think he's very, very good. I mean, there's certain things that I think he could do better. But then again, you could say that about any player, you know.
Yes, yeah.
But you're right about the point. I mean, he would have been made for Manchester City. Eamon.
Yes, he would.
I mean, he's a very good player for anybody, but for Manchester City. But I don't think he can spend the way he could spend before.
No.
I mean, now Arsenal got in and got him. So, but it's early days. Yes.
Yes.
You know, I mean, they've lost a couple of matches on the bounce. They did that last year as well, when they went behind Arsenal, and then went on an unbeaten win.
Arsenal haven't beaten them now, John, since 2015. It's 8 years since Arsenal have beaten them.
Yeah, at Arsenal. Yeah.
Anywhere.
Anywhere, yeah. But they were way. I mean, there was only last year. I mean, they were 10 points, 11 points ahead.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You know, and City caught them from there. So it's early days.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It wasn't there. Certainly wasn't their day at the weekend.
Now, John, I think both of us, we talked during that game, would have reservations about Arsenal, who were themselves missing a couple of very important players. Saha, who's a very, very good winger, very good forward player. He was missing. Martinelli, who's been injured, did come on and in just after half time, actually. And he was the one credited with the goal. He is also a winger, causes trouble. But they didn't have all of their players fit. They did have a player I was very interested in at the back, Salabah. He's played at centre half alongside Gabriel. Looked very, very, very good player. But they don't look like champions, do they? Don't look quite good enough. Or do you think differently?
Well, they've had a couple of injuries, Eamon. Yeah, I think that they're capable of doing it. If City don't do what they should be doing in previous seasons, I think Arsenal. I think he's improved them as he's gone along.
Yes, he has. There's no doubt about that.
I'm not so sure about the goalkeeper situation. That's a funny one. You know, they seem to say when he bought the goalkeeper that he would every second match. You know. Yeah. But that hasn't happened. I think he's playing all the time.
He is. Ramsdale is their other goalkeeper. I think it's better. I thought the keeper had a nightmare yesterday. He got away with it, but he looked very nervy.
Yeah. But I think he's still getting his team right, and he's on the right. He's on the right way, Amy. You know, compared to what he was 2 or 3 years ago when he had a couple of guys up front that were not doing it for him, and then he's got younger players in. I think he's done a good job so far. So this season is very, very big for him. I mean, he had a good win, which has got to give him a boost at the weekend. But there's a long way to go. A long, long way to go yet.
Right. Now let's talk about the team top of the league, Tottenham Hotspur. They're top of the league on goal difference from Arsenal, both on 20 points. City are on 18 and Liverpool on 17. Ange Postecoglou had 2 seasons at Celtic, won the league on both occasions. He's got a lot of experience. He's an Australian, and he's transformed Spurs, one has to say, in terms of confidence. And you like him, John. You like the team he's putting out in the field, and you like his disposition on the touchline.
Oh, I think he's very good, Eamon.
Yeah.
And he speaks well after the match as well. There's no nonsense about what he tells you what he's trying to do. which is what he's saying is trying to keep it simple, getting the best from the players that he's got at his disposal.
Yep.
In other words, we defend when we have to, we attack when we possibly can.
Yes.
Now, it all sounds very simple, but you hear a lot of tactics being talking all the time. This is what we do, this is what, and he reduces it to simplicity, Eamon.
Yes.
And as we know, like they talk about football as a simple game. Well, in my opinion, it's not a simple game. It's a very complicated game. And you get guys like this who simplify, if that's the right word, the game.
It is the right word, and
it
it's something as a manager you did very well as well. You didn't baffle players with complicated gobshite talk.
No, it's complicated anyway. I mean, you played the game long enough. It's a complicated game, and what the great players do is simplify it and make it look simple.
Yes.
And this manager, this is what he's doing at Spurs, and I like him. There's no nonsense about him. He's getting on with the job. This is what he has to do. You know, whatever happened in the past is gone. And he got a good win again against Luton. Luton with plenty of spirit. They got stuck into them.
Yeah.
One of his players, Bazuma, got a stupid red card to reduce them to 10 men, and they still went on to win, in the second half. So he's very good. In other words, defend when they have to, they attack when they possibly can, and he hasn't got Harry Kane. Imagine Harry Kane in that lineup. So he's doing a big job. I think that the panel might be a little bit weak, aiming for them to go on and win it. But you give everybody a go, that's for sure. And there'll be no easy touch about Spurs.
No, and they drew at Liverpool last week, and they had this win against Luton. They have Richarlison in the side, John, who's a player neither of us like. He's a Brazilian who plays like, well, I won't say any particular country. Yeah. Let's try Wales. But he certainly doesn't play like a Brazilian, does he?
No, never has, Eamon. And apparently the poor lad is having mental
problems.
Which is that's not going to do him any good either. But he seems a strange lad, Eamon.
He does,
I don't think you ever really fancied him. He has a certain amount of skill, but for a Brazilian lad, he's not a skillful player by any means. But I do feel sorry for him in that way, because he hasn't been, even when I think he was mentally okay, I don't think he's been good enough for Spurs.
No. One player we both love, John, you love him too, Son. He's got a lot of goals, 6 goals I think he's got this season. He was Harry Kane's partner in crime. Harry set up lots of goals for him. He set up goals for Harry. They were a kind of deadly duo. He's a wonderful player, isn't he? With a great attitude.
He's brilliant, Damon. His attitude alone, he never causes any trouble. He just gets on with the job, does his job well. No fuss and bother in acting the clown. He's really, and he had a bad start to the season. I think he missed Harry at the start of the season, but he scored 4 or 5 or 6 goals in the last few matches. So he's back on trail again. But he's a type of player that any manager would love to have.
Absolutely, great
Get
attitude.
Out, do their job, score their goals, no fuss, no bother, no problems. Excellent.
Now, one thing to note, Chelsea, Pochettino, I think he's a coach we both like. Again, for much of the same reasons we like Postecoglou. He's a human, he doesn't talk shite, and we think he's a good judge in the game. He took Tottenham to the Champions League final, which means he must be hell of a man. Now, Chelsea have won their last 2 games after a nightmare start. He's moving them slowly up the table. They won't be in contention to win, I don't think. But they did get their result at Burnley at the weekend, 4-1. And one player in particular, John, Raheem Sterling, he's a player with immense ability, as we've seen under Pochettino. But he's been dusting for a few years now, hasn't he?
Yeah,
the City got rid of him. He dusted last year at Chelsea. I think he's been left out of the England squad by Gareth Southgate, which is surprising because he's been a starter in the England team. Now he should be in it because he's playing brilliantly at the moment. I watched him against Burnley. I watched him last week, the week before, and he was brilliant, John. He's quick, sharp, scoring goals, scored a goal on Saturday. He's a player of immense talent, isn't he?
Not half, Eamon. He's absolutely brilliant when he decides to do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've always been very, very cautious about fellas who decide to do it.
Yes, yeah.
You know,
It's just as easy to decide not to do it.
Well, I think since he's gone to Chelsea, he certainly decided more not to do it than do it. I think the last a couple of weeks ago, I saw him, Eamon, at the same time as yourself, and he was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. He was flying along and on. Then he was out of the team again.
Yeah.
And now he's back in it, and he scored again on Saturday. So I think he's obviously that type of lad. I mean, if you look at his back on his career, I mean, he left the team in London, didn't he, Eamon?
Oh, he did,
he was a young fella.
Yeah.
Went to Liverpool, left Liverpool, go to City, leave City to go to Chelsea.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something that looks good, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And since he's gone to Chelsea, I mean, last season he never kicked the ball. Sometimes he was injured, but any time I saw him play, he never tried a leg. So Pochettino is a big job to get him doing it week in, week out, week in, week out. Again, you know, the money situation comes into it, Eamon.
Yeah.
And good luck to a lot of the lads. But apparently he's got over 50 million in the bank.
Yeah.
And like lots of great players have 50 million or more in the bank, Eamon, and they're still great players because they have the right attitude.
Yeah.
But you'd have to look at the situation with Sterling and hopefully from Pochettino's point of view to get him to play every week. There's no doubt he has the ability. Has he got the attitude to do it week in and week out remains to be seen.
Right. Let me ask you about Liverpool, John. They drew 2-2 away to Brighton. They have a devastating forward line. They're going to get tons of goals. I mean, Mo Salah got 2, but they've got Nunez, they've got Jota, they've got Diaz. The goals flow like there's no tomorrow. But defensively, again, I watched the game. Van Dijk gave a goal away, gave a bad pass, and next thing, ball's in the back of the net. He hasn't recovered, John, from that ACL, that knee ligament. Now, that is a very serious operation. In our day, it was a career ender, wasn't it? But now he lost a yard of pace. What do you make of him now, John? I mean, he did brilliantly for Liverpool. I think he was an inspired buy from Southampton by Jurgen Klopp. Broke the bank for him as well, 75 million for a centre-half. And did really well for quite a long time. But there is a but, isn't there?
Well, there is at the moment, Damon, because, I mean, the injury he had, as you explained there, is a very serious injury, and to get back from it, which he has done, but most players, when they have that particular injury or similar injuries, do lose a bit of pace.
Yes.
And I think he has as well, because I think he's always been a player, Damon, that's depended
on the pace.
Sometimes too much on his pace.
Yes.
You know, like if you see some lads getting back quickly, he didn't have to. And it's very, very, very hard then to get the injury that he had and to not change your mentality towards defending. Yeah. Like even the other day, I thought him, you know, one of the goals against him, he was very slow getting back in it. I mean, he's still a very, very good player because he's such a fit individual. But that extra pace, extra yard or two, Eamon, does make a hell of a difference. But I watched the match as well. I thought Brighton again, Eamon, they're incredible.
Yeah.
They're incredible.
Really good football.
Eamon, actually, the first goal they get, there's always a possibility that they will make mistakes doing what they do. Yes. I mean, they frightened the life out of me. And it has nothing to do with me, with Brighton, with sometimes the way they're playing it out from the back. And I think the first goal, the way playing out at the back,
Dunphy made a balls of it,
it was terrible. I mean, it was just outrageous to do what they did. Yeah. But they stick at it and come back again and came back again. With Liverpool, I think the manager is unbelievable. Yes. Unbelievably good. Yes. Because he's losing players. I mean, he must have lost at least eight players over the last 4 or 5 years, Eamon. Top class players.
Well, they've been different managers through that period. He's only been there recently, but they have sold a lot of players.
Yeah, they have. Well, whatever way they've done their recruiting has been absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
And I think he has improved them. I mean, they're excellent at what they do. Now, they took a couple of chances. They lost out on particularly on the first goal. There was no need for it. But for him to be able to do what he's doing, Eamon, he has to live with that now and again.
Yes.
Now and again, because that's what he believes in. That's what he's doing. And I thought they deserved the draw, the point against Liverpool.
Evan Ferguson played, John, but he was taken off after an hour.
Yeah.
And was he injured when he came off? Because that's important for Ireland, who've got the international games to come this week in the international break. He didn't
look injured.
Right.
Now that as we know, it could be a hamstring, could be anything.
Yeah.
But the way he was coming off, he didn't go down. He didn't make any. He looked okay coming off. He wasn't having a good game. He wasn't in the game very very much. No, I don't. He didn't look injured to me. But it was a good game. Brighton are what they are, which I think is brilliant what they're doing. And Liverpool got away with it in a certain way. They missed a great chance themselves, Liverpool, to make it 3-1 at one stage, Eamon.
Right.
But they didn't close the game down, that's for sure.
Okay, let me ask you about a couple of Liverpool players. Alexander-Arnold came back into the team. This young Hungarian, Szoboszlai, the midfield player, he's one I want to ask you about. But the other one is McAllister, who's also a midfield player. He was in the Argentinian team that won the World Cup. But let me ask you about those two. What do you make of them? Because I think Liverpool do need a bit of presence in midfield. Again, I'd go to Rice, Declan Rice. They need, a Henderson or a Milner. You need some experience in there, and they don't seem to have that kind of player in there.
No, they don't, Eamon. I think McAllister's a very good player at what he does. He seems sort of a quiet personality to me.
Yes.
On the pitch, he's not telling anybody what to do. He's not getting on with the job of, getting on the ball, making sure that, he seems to be a quiet lad, just gets on doing his own job. And they do need a bit more than that in the middle of the field.
Yes.
There's no doubt. The other lad you mentioned, what's his heart in?
Szoboszlai.
Yeah, I have to see more of him, Eamon. He looks promising. I think he's a young lad as well.
He is, yeah. He scored a spectacular goal against Leicester in the League Cup. I think he's a bit of a lightweight, John, but a very, very good footballer. But it takes them time to get used to the intensity, doesn't it, of the Premier League? It isn't like that in Hungary, or anywhere else for that matter.
It does, especially in midfield where you want somebody.
Yeah.
Midfield is probably, it's obviously one of the most important positions because it's a mobile position for the player who is really, really top class.
Yes.
He doesn't have to worry about his own job. He can get on to other people and he can get around the pitch in a way that you need to get around the pitch. Whereas if you're a fullback, you have to stay in that position most of the time, or centre forward. And they don't have anybody like that at the moment from what we can see, Eamon.
Let me ask you for one more time, because I think I may have left Mo Salah out of my list of goal scorers for Liverpool. He scored 2 against Brighton. He's just magnificent, John, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, he's great, Eamon. He's great. I mean, you never hear any controversies about Salah.
No.
He just gets on with the job, Eamon.
Yeah.
And does it brilliantly, Like, if you look at a lot of the great players, Eamon, there's no fuss about them. They're too busy doing what they have to do.
Yes.
So that's what he does. He doesn't not losing his temper over something
sometimes
stupid.
When he's hauled off, he throws his drop. Sometimes when he's taken off with 5 minutes to go, he gives Klopp a dirty look. Yeah, it is a good sign, yeah.
You know what I mean? Who wants to be taken off? And the thing is, to be honest now, if I was a man, I'd never take him off. Because he's always capable, even when he's not playing well. Yes. He's capable of getting you a goal from nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's why he gets so annoyed when he's taken off. But that's his temperament, that's what he believes in, and he believes in himself. He doesn't want to be taken off. He score at any time. And a lot of time he does. But he's brilliant. You'd have, as a pro, you'd have to love Salah.
Love him, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we do. My problem with you when you were a manager wasn't that you were taking me off. It was that you weren't putting me on.
Well, you weren't Salah.
Well, you were Klopp, or nearly. But that's the best answer I've heard for a long time. And with that, we've moved.
Well, you were nearly up there with him, but not quite.
Yeah, we'll move on to the match that you watched, and I only watched a bit of, but I got great satisfaction. Manchester United beat Brentford 2-1. Scott McTominay, who I've been agitating to be in the United midfield because of the intensity he brings, and because he's been having a great time for Scotland with Steve Clarke scoring goals, the winning matches, they're on a roll. He put him on. I think he may have come on as a sub, or did he start? No, he didn't.
No, he came on as a sub near the end.
3 minutes from the end. Then he scored 2 goals. Yeah. He's a good lad. He's mobile. He gets stuck in. He's got a couple of goals. Saved them, John, from absolute humiliation if they'd have lost that game. And it looked like it until the 90th minute. How bad were United, John?
Well, they have. That's the way they've been the last few matches, Eamon, particularly. And when you get a player like McTominay, he's been there since he was a kid, Eamon, now a real kid.
Yeah.
And he obviously loves the club, and he loves playing for the club.
Yes.
And he loves doing his best when he goes out to play for the club. Now, I've had my doubts about him for his ability, Eamon. Never had any doubts about his love of the club and what he's doing. And I think that's what's lacking at Old Trafford.
Yes.
I mean, ability-wise, if you look at the players around him, you know, Fernandez and all these guys, he wouldn't be in the same class as them. But when you're in as a footballer, as you know, Eamon, it's not just about ability. It's about the will to do it, the spirit to do it, and that. And again, I was very lucky. I played with some. One in particular, when I went to Leeds, was Norman Hunter. He was only 18 or something.
Yeah.
And he looked average, Eamon.
Yeah.
But his attitude was incredible and went on to be a great player.
Yes.
And I think that's what's lacking at Old Trafford. And I think McTominay coming on and doing what he's done and does what he does shows them up.
Yep. I totally agree with you. And it's a good message to send out to young lads as well, isn't it, John?
Yeah. Yes. Attitude is your starting point, Eamon.
If your attitude is right, you'll go longer and further than your ability might suggest, particularly when you're young.
Exactly. I'll tell you, one of the great examples of that was Roy Keane.
Yes, indeed.
You know, if you look at Roy Keane, Roy's Keane attitude was what made him. Obviously, he had ability, but he wasn't a Scholes. He didn't have the ability of Scholes and some of the players around him. But he had the attitude, particularly when he didn't have the ball to get it back, Eamon. You know, he did it himself, and he got the other players around him to do it, and that was the attitude to do it.
Yes.
Now, McTominay is not Keane, but he has a good attitude when he doesn't have he's limited in some of the things that he does. But his attitude towards winning the match for Manchester United is no doubt 100%.
Yeah.
And that's what the players around him need. If they had his attitude, I think United would have no problem whatsoever being challenging for trophies.
No, well, at the moment, they're just, I think, below Crystal Palace in the league, and they're having a bad time. And I don't think, well, it's hard to judge any coach when the Glazers are your bosses. So we'll leave it at that. John, as always, a pleasure to talk to you. I know I'm going to see you soon when Liam's book is launched, our friend Liam Brady. Yeah. It was serialised in the Sunday Independent yesterday, and the blurb on the front page said that when he got a call from RTE asking if he'd come and work with us, he said, "Work with Eamon Dunphy? No way." And then he said they offered him more money than he thought. What he didn't know was I was the one agitating to offer him the money to get him in, because he was brilliant.
But it worked out well, Eamon, anyway.
Well, I'd written some shit about him that was tough, and about his, managers and coaches and all that stuff. Anyway, he said in the book, in the inside page, where there was the serialisation, as I do whenever I don't know what to do, I rang John Giles. and John said, he's not as bad as you might think, he said. one thing for sure, you'll never be bored. And he signed on the dotted line, and we had 25 years together, the three of us, and they were great years. And that's a nice thing, and I'm looking forward to reading the book, and I'll be looking it through to see if I get my dues. And I know you won't. You'll get the usual praise. It's sickening.
Well, I have to pay him enough, Eamon.
Anyway, it's a great pleasure to talk to you, John. Look forward to having a few jars with you when Liam's book is launched.
Yes,
I think it's
we'll
next week.
To that, Eamon.
Next week sometime, and looking forward to seeing you then. For the moment, we're very grateful to one of our greatest ever footballers, one of our great coaches and thinkers about the game, John Giles.